guys, welcome to Windsome Cottage Garden. My name is Hannah and I'm so glad that you decided to join me today. We're in the home garden, and as I've mentioned in a previous video, it is time to plant more trees. I recently moved. I guess I should probably not say recently anymore. I moved last September. This is my first season in my new house and I'm beginning to make the garden my own. Now, one of the things I knew I was going to be prioritizing this year was getting some anchor plants in the ground. There is a lot of scope in this garden. It's kind of a blank slate. If you want, I will link below the very first garden tour I did in my new space. And the sky's the limit. I have a master plan for this space. I've been dreaming up all winter, but it's going to take about 5 to 10 years for me to achieve that vision. So I've just been kind of picking out bits and pieces to check off the list this year as my budget allows. And high on the priority list was getting some trees in place. I'm really fortunate that my dad came this weekend to help me plant all these trees. Not to belabor this excuse, but I recently injured myself and am limited in what I can lift a little bit. And so the trees were a little beyond what is good for me right now. And he came and planted these trees and a couple more. And he's actually done a lot between helping take down some trees, building vegetable beds. He's an awesome dad. So he is the one who's going to be doing most of the planting in this video. You're actually never going to believe this street isn't that busy. I know I've had like a million cars go by it today. So he got 3 trees planted. If you're new to my channel, welcome. You might not know that we actually removed some trees recently along the back of my property line between me and the neighbor behind me. And so 2 of the trees that we planted in this video are in the back, that they're gonna eventually grow up and give me some more privacy with some more additional interest. But one of the ones we planted is in the front. I'm gonna insert now the video footage I have of him planting things, then we'll come back and talk about varieties a little bit more. The first one that we actually planted, you can already see, it is right out here. you guys have seen them get planted, let's go take a closer look at all 3 trees, and I will give you some more stats on the varieties we planted, as well as why we placed them where we did, and talk about a little bit more about my dad's planting method. Now, before I go look at this closer, I do want to quick show you. This tree right here is the first one we got planted. My plan is eventually to carve out quite a large garden space in here so I don't have to mow underneath these pretty epic trees, which are glorious. I'm gonna walk under them and point upwards so you can see. We've got 2 big white pines and a couple of old glorious oaks that create a lot of shade and actually create some interesting paths to cut in the grass. Because this is an understory plant, we went with one that can handle some shade. This is a stellar pink dogwood, and it's looking a little bit draggled because the blooms are on the way out. And these, I know, were actually on it when we brought it home from the nursery, so it's a little bruised. But they start out pink and then they fade to a light creamy color that's really quite pleasing. This one is, as I said, an understory plant. It likes to be full to part sun, but really thrives in a woodland setting and can get 20 to 25 feet tall, 15 to 20 feet wide, and is known to be fast growing. There's also a zone 5 through 8. I am a zone 6 here, and I think it's going to do really well. This is actually going to be the front edge of the growing space, and what I really liked about this is it helps block my front door from the road, which I don't know if you can see. You see that little face right there? That is a dog who loves to bark. I even have some privacy film to try and discourage them to bark, but she can see shapes in cars, and if I'm out here, she's just standing there staring all the time. So adding a screen, which this is part of, is gonna be a priority. Now, it also is kind of evenly placed between, let me back up a little bit more. It's kind of evenly spaced between these 2 trees, both from this vantage point and from the door. You saw my dad and I debating a couple of different things. This is where we ended up placing it because it could fill this space beautifully, though I doubt it'll get to the taller range, given it is very part sun here, but it does have the woodland setting it likes. This will look a lot better next year. These again are got a little wind blown in the drive back, but they're really big, beautiful blooms that when I saw it at the nursery, I thought, yep, that's the dogwood for me. Moving to the backyard, you can see 2 of the trees that we planted earlier this year right here. And the third one is one that we did plant in this video we tried to plant last time. And this one I'm super excited about. It did not go in easy. This is a Sango Kaku, and I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it correctly, Japanese maple. Now, even though it's a Japanese maple, it is known to be fast-ish growing, for not like maple fast, but fast for Japanese maple. I think it can grow up to a foot a year if it likes its space and gets enough water. But it's a zone 5 through 8, and it's known as a coral bark maple, in part because of the striking color of its new growth stems. Like, look at this. Isn't that just so cool? Now, the nursery we went to, honestly, I'm still trying to figure out exactly what their business model is, because I think their main customer is like the public versus wholesalers, but they also grow most of their own stock. And they just have so much that to like look through and find, and it was crammed into the space they had. So my mom and I were actually looking for the dogwood. A very helpful woman there had said, oh, we've got some of them here, some of them there, and they're various sizes, so you're just gonna have to look. We saw this like 2 rows away, and we both said, what is that? At the same time, and went and looked at it. And my mom and dad actually bought one for the cottage. And then I thought about it, and I went back and bought one like a week later, because I was like, you know what, that can go in the hedge between me and my neighbors, because it is just so cool. So cool. So because they're like growers, they didn't have like a tag on it, but I want to try and show you up close what it looks like. So these leaves have like a red tinge around them, which is really interesting, but the bark is really the star of the show. Now these leaves put on quite a show. I'm not exactly sure what it looks like in the spring, but in the fall they're going to turn like a golden yellow, which is supposedly like one of their best seasons. And then in the winter they drop all the leaves and you have this bright red stem. Now as the bark gets older, it turns more to like maroon. Like, let's see if you can see it there. Like, but most of the outer branches will have this glow. And I actually have some pictures that I'll insert of what it looks like in the winter and the snow, which I'm really, really excited about. Now, these are zone 5 through 8, I think. Since it didn't have a tag, I'm not like 100% sure. And when I Googled it, I found 2 or 3 different answers. So I'm hoping 5 through 8 is accurate. And it'll get 20 to 25 feet tall and 15 to 20 feet wide. It's good in full to part sun, and it will also flower in the spring like maples, big maples do, and produce samaras, which are really those like helicopter things. So it doesn't mind some shade, and I've got it kind of on the edge of this there's a weeping Alaskan cedar, Donald Wyman crabapple, and then this Sango Kaku Japanese maple. So if I step back, you can kind of see the hedge that will eventually form. Now this really old hemlock, I actually have plans to take it down in the next 5 years, but I don't want to do it right now because that would create just such a fishbowl right here. I want to give these guys 5 years to put on a little bit of growth, and then eventually this will come down because it's not the best. It's also leaning in kind of a bad way. And then once that comes down, I'll probably replace it with something else. But that gives it some time to, you know, develop a little bit more and grow a little bit more. So that, you know, 20 to 25 feet tall, we'll put it about here. And these guys, I think, are also about 20 to 30. So it'll be a nice hedge that's not the 40 feet that this is, but still gives privacy while allowing sun to come into a vegetable garden, which we planted in a recent video, which I will link below. The last tree my dad planted on this trip is right over here, and it's not showing up the best because it's in shade, but hopefully you can see it more. This is a clump Eastern Redbud. Eastern Redbuds are native to this area. They are one of my favorite spring trees, bar none. This is the first one we planted here. There's a dearth of spring trees, flowering trees on this property that I've very quickly rectified with the dogwood, the crabapple, and now this redbud. I want to try and get at least 2 or 3 other redbuds in various other areas because the bright purple flowers they have just are so lovely to me. One of my favorite signs that spring is finally here. And then they really offer this pretty dappled shade afterwards, which it's got like heart-shaped leaves, which I think are just charming. Now these are just coming out, and I did manage to get a pretty nice clump. If I kind of go down, you can see that it's got a number of great branches. There are some dead in the back of it that I'm going to give a little more time. I'm pretty sure these are dead. There's still some flexibility in it, so I don't really want to chop them quite yet. But even without those, this actually gets a decent amount of sun, so it'll kind of spread this way pretty well. These can get 20 to 30 feet tall and 20 to 25 feet wide. So this space, you might be thinking, is kind of small for it. And you're not wrong. These are really great woodland trees. They can go anywhere from full sun to full shade, and they're really tolerant of most soil types, though they do like moist soil. And this happens to be in the most moist area in the entire property. So I think it's gonna like it here. Our plan is, as it grows, to kind of trim the hemlocks around it, especially as this tree gets taken out in that 5 to 10 years. It will allow this to shine a little bit more. It's actually just entering shade right now, but it gets a decent amount of morning sun as well. And I should also mention this is a zone 4 through 9. And I wanted to briefly talk about my dad's planting method. We did a larger video on this last year, which I'll link below, because it's similar to what we do when we are transplanting things. But Dad will, dig the hole probably about half as large as what he needs anytime we're planting a large shrub and or a tree, whether it's transplanting or introducing it for the first time. He'll do a hole about half, again, as big as he needs for the root ball, and then he'll fill it with water and let it drain. Sometimes he repeats that if it's drier than he would like, just to make sure the area surrounding it is really saturated with water and isn't going to suck away the water we give the plant right after it's planted. So once he gets that in, he'll add soil back in. I usually add the fertilizer. And then he'll create like a moat around it so that it'll create a puddle that he fills at least 2 or 3 times and lets drain. So it's got a really deep water right away that encourages the roots to go downward rather than just staying at the surface. Sometimes if you don't give it enough water right away, it doesn't encourage that deep growth down, and that can in the long run hurt the tree's roots. So after that, what he does is for the first couple of years, he will put a really thick layer of mulch on. As you can see here, I'd say that's 6+ inches, and this is compacted a bit, and this is right on top of the moat he made. Now you will note that the mulch and the moat has been cleared away from the bottom root flare. You never want to have soil or mulch up against above where the natural root flare is, because that can actually cause the tree to rot at the base and will kill it. This is pretty extreme. We only do this for a couple of years, and this really helps keep moisture concentrated where the roots are growing the most. And he's done this for a lot of our trees, and they've always thrived. So we watered it in really well. The last couple days I put a slow sprinkler on it for 30 to 45 minutes. I'm probably going to switch that to every other day, and then a little bit less, and then it'll just be the sprinkler water it gets as my lawn gets covered. Right now it's in a protected area with all my holding plants, which are doing really, really well. Kind of give you a quick view. We got some wire vine flowering. We've got some ajuga flowering. Our peonies are really budded up. The iris, though, this is one that I had in my old garden. And, you know, in the 5 years it was there, it never bloomed. But I take it out and put it in a pot, and it's blooming. Crazy. And we also have a really pretty white one. And they have some iris over there that I'm just waiting to see what color they are, because I'm very, very curious. There's another iris in the front that I think is a different color, and it hasn't bloomed yet either. But I've been watching them all so eagerly to see, because there wasn't a lot here. And anytime I find something new, or that I'm just kind of like, oh, what are you? What can I do with you? I'm probably going to move you, but where's your right spot? And so it's been kind of fun finding new surprises, even though there's not a lot. There's been a couple things that I thought, oh, you're really nice, which has been exciting to discover. Anyway, those 3 trees really mark the last of the big tree and shrubs that we're going to be getting in this year. I mean, maybe I'll be able to pick something up at the end of season sale in the fall, but that would be a bonus. These are the ones we're planning on, and I'm so excited that we got them in. Originally, I'd been thinking about delaying planting them a little bit, because my neighbor to the rear of me is going to be doing some fence work and smoothing out some of the bumps. But where we sited these, we decided to move them in a little bit more, so it's not going to affect the work they're doing. And that meant that we could plant them right away, which I like, because it means that they have all growing season to get started. And that 3-month start really means that this is their first growing season, versus if you plant them in the fall, I feel like next season's their first growing season, and it's not till that spring that the clock really gets started. So planting them now, exciting, and I can't wait to see them grow up and fill in and add to this space. I really appreciate you joining me today. If you liked this video, please hit that thumbs up button and subscribe, and I can't wait to see you next time. Bye-bye.